Welcome to the Hard Truth Podcast. This is Jeremy Fouts, and today we have a special guest from New York that is going to be visiting with us. The topic that we are going to be talking about is taking men from average to alpha. So I know we have a lot of men that listen to this podcast on a consistent basis. We are going to give you the answers today, not we. Mr. Christian is going to give you the answers, and I cannot wait to be a student of this podcast also myself today. Christian Palmer is a bodybuilder and nutritionist, also specializes on optimizing their hormones, and owner of Relentless Fitness and Nutrition. He's considered in the marketplace as men's health specialist. It's an honor and a privilege to have you on today's podcast here, Christian. Today's podcast is something that I've been looking forward to since you and I have developed a friendship. The Hard Truth Podcast, Christian, there's a lot of people out there that teach cheat codes, the easy ways. The reason I was so attracted to you and your story is you represent what the Hard Truth Podcast is all about, which is telling the truth of what it takes to what you described, going from average to alpha. So it's a pleasure and an honor to have you on. Share with us a little bit about your background before we jump into today's podcast and give these men what they need in order to go from average to alpha.
Let's go. What up?
Jeremy, thank you very much first for having me on. I've been looking forward to this as well because I love the content you put out and you speak the truth, no pun intended, the hard truth. So
Yep.
How I got started is I've always been interested in fitness. As a kid, I was into superheroes. I always loved watching athletes play. I loved competition. I was always very competitive. I wanted to be the first. I wanted to be the fastest. I wanted to be the strongest. And it happened to be that way where anytime my friends and I would be riding bikes, and I'd be like, hey, I'll beat you to the end of the neighborhood, or I can throw further. And when I was in high school, I started getting into lifting. I was searching the internet for something, and I came across a bodybuilder at IFBB Pro at the time named Garrett Downing. The second I saw that picture, I thought, holy crap, I want to look just like that. So I started lifting weights that day. My brother had the old weight sets, if you remember, where you screw the ends on and they were filled with sand.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm in
yeah,
the room.
yeah,
I'm just moving stuff. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm like, I'm just going to get big. And intuitively, I thought to myself, okay, I have to eat a certain way. Wasn't taught it. It just seemed to just come to me. So I started researching and I printed out a stack of papers. Must have been as thick as Webster's dictionary. I used all my parents' ink and all their paper to the point where I got yelled at later that day. But anyway.
Yeah, we didn't have Google back then, did we?
We didn't. And I was just obsessed from day one. So in school, I asked the coach if I could start lifting in the weight room after track practice because I did track and field and football. Started lifting there, and the passion just grew. So buddies of mine in high school started to follow me there to the gym because they're like, hey, man, you look like you're getting in pretty good shape. Like, can we go with you? Sure. So the propensity for coaching just sort of started as a result of them going with me there, and I was sort of the guy who made the workout of the day. All right, this is what we're all doing. Okay, show me how to do, how's my form should look. They even started following my diet, the diet that I looked at for myself. And they're like, hey, man, what should we eat? Should we get protein powder, chicken? What do we do? So went to school down the road and got my degree in exercise science. And in my 20s, my mom was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So this was where my passion to help other people started. So once she was diagnosed, I thought to myself, okay, I've got to help her through this. There's no option, right? Mom's going to stay around. She's going to be healthy. I'll do what I can. So got to the research and I started reading and I realized that, there's a way I can help her. Okay. I'm like, okay, insulin, carbohydrates, how does this all work? Okay. Exercise. How do you put this together to make a healthier person? So I started to help her out and I'm very much all gas, no brake. So I gave her a lot of information to the point where she's like, Christian, get off my back. I'll take care of it. I wasn't so much about easing into it. I'm like head first. And, what was awesome is that she did start to take on those things that I was teaching her, started making some of her traditional recipes. My mom's Italian. So I grew up in an Italian kitchen. My dad's Caribbean. So I grew up with a lot of Jamaican food as well. but more so on the Italian side, a lot of carbs, right? So I was helping her come up with healthier ways to eat, to make her traditional foods, and also started to get her to walk more. Hey, we should go exercise. Let's go for a walk together. And after a few years, her insulin improved to the point where now she actually no longer needs insulin. Now, once I had helped her do that, I was like, well, if I helped her, that means I could probably help other people. So after I got my degree, I worked a little bit of retail, and a buddy of mine worked at a Equinox out here in Westchester. And he's like, hey, man, you looking for a job? Like, I know, you went through school and you probably don't want to fold shirts for the rest of your life. So he had spoke to the manager, had an interview there, and the rest was history. And then after 6 years of working there, I was like, hey, I don't want to go up the corporate ladder. I see the ceiling here. I've got a lot of ideas, a lot of people I want to help, specifically men. So I started my business, Relentless Fitness and Nutrition, in 2019.
That's awesome. Relentless Fitness and Nutrition. I know you have worked with a lot of men and helped them get a lot of results. And that is so rewarding, Christian. I mean, number one, starting with your mom, somebody you love that would do anything in the world for. I know a lot of different men struggle with a lot of different issues. As you working with men, what are some of the most common things that you see with men that they are struggling with at getting started and going from average to being an alpha?
So men struggle with, one, we're taught to suffer in silence. So a lot of the problems that us men have, we don't tell anyone, okay? We're taught that just rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine, bro, walk it off. To the point where guys will not say anything and end up having a heart attack, and then now your family's left behind without you, which is something I committed myself. I'm going to save as many men as I can and help them become the best version of themselves. So men suffer with low energy, low libido. And one of the most important things in my belief is that every man needs a mission. Okay? There's a lot of men who end up living lives of quiet desperation. They don't feel like they have purpose. They don't feel fulfilled with what they do in life. And they're not the leader and provider and protector that they could be for their family. But they have this vision of this guy they want to be, right? And it's the guy you see in the movies who's just kicking butt. He's really successful, almost like Batman, right? He's like the superhero, but he's got the money and the women and the accolades. But what happens is a lot of these men get caught up in the everyday mouse wheel, the grind of everyday life. So they put on a little bit of weight. They think, oh, it's not a big deal. When deep down inside, they want more, but sometimes they don't know what to do first or how to get themselves started. And they tell themselves, I need to feel a certain way before I don't feel motivated. I have trouble, versus those first few steps are always the hardest. You have to break through the resistance in order to get the benefits down the road, right? There's no place where the results come before the work. And that's where a lot of them get confused.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you talked about motivation. I talked to a lot of men about that. They said, man, I'm not feeling motivated today. How do you stay motivated? And I would love your take. I mean, the thing I tell them is, look, discipline comes before motivation. You're not always going to be motivated. Motivation is an emotion. Sometimes you feel it, sometimes you don't. But what I've learned in helping different individuals is usually that motivation really kicks in 60, 80, 90 days, 100 days later, when you really start seeing a difference. Is that what you'd tell men that are saying, I don't have the motivation?
100%. And, I always say discipline always comes before motivation in the dictionary and in life. And it's, you have to do the thing in order to feel the way. The problem is people expect the opposite. I'm going to have this invisible force just, rise up inside me, and then I'm going to want to conquer the world. If you look at yourself in the mirror and you're not proud with what you see, men listening to this right now, you're not proud with what you see, understand that you have to do the work, right? Whether you believe in God, Allah, Vishnu, the universe is going to see how bad you want it. So when you get started, there's something called beginner's luck. Now, I'll explain what I mean. That's where you start something and you have some success right away, right? Oh, I feel good. Oh, maybe you lost a couple pounds right away. But Murphy's Law, something difficult will come no matter what. Because then the universe says, okay, you got a good start. Let's see how bad you really want it. Then it hits you in the face, right? And you get injured, or the kids get sick, or something happens with the car, or your schedule gets busier. And now it's, well, discipline needs to take over because motivation is fleeting. Now, can you walk the path even when you don't want to, when it's cold outside, when, you're sore, when, oh, the wife's screaming at you, the kids have this going on. This is where most of us live. And what makes the difference, in my opinion, between winners and losers is, do you walk the path no matter what? And I mean, even when things get extremely hard in life, and when you push through these times where you don't want to go. Jeremy, I know you've been to the gym tons of times and you were like, all right, let's get it done. You didn't jump out of bed ready to kick the door down. But I guarantee you every time when you were finished, you thought to yourself, I'm glad I did that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've never had a bad workout, Christian. I mean, you're 100% right. There's been times that I want to, make a justification in my mind that I'm too tired, got back from a football game late, baseball game, all of those different things. But when I make myself do what I say I'm going to do, there's not one time I've ever left that gym and regret going to that gym. Never, ever. I know you're big on starting people off. A lot of people don't understand, Christian, the importance of nutrition. I'm a big gym guy. That is my place to get rid of my stress. I mean, I love the gym. Now, it took me a while to get to that point, and I'll let you kind of talk about that here in a few minutes. But a lot of times, too, people don't understand the importance of nutrition and the value that brings in order to not only becoming to look like what you want to look, but to have that overall health. I know you talk a lot about, checking your blood pressure, regularly, and why that's important. And that's why I tell men over and over, yes, you want to look good without a shirt on, but the more important thing is living a good quality of life and not being a burden on your family if you don't take care of your health. I know you're big also on hormones optimization and then also protein, so kind of walk us through. If I come to you and said, hey, Christian, I'm a middle-aged man. I don't know where to start. I know I need to go to the gym. I don't even begin to know, about a little bit about nutrition, the importance of protein. What would you kind of give me a little bit of direction? Now, I know, and I'm a big believer in hiring a coach, and you're going to share your information here at the end for someone can reach out to you. So we ain't got time to go through every little detail. But if you're giving me a little bit of direction today to say, hey, these are the things you need to look at, and I can coach you through these processes more in detail if you reach out to me, how would you start pointing me in the right direction?
Okay, so the first thing is you brought up a great point. And whenever you're not an expert in something, it's a great idea to hire someone who is, right? Just like if you're not an expert in working on your car, you could work on it yourself. It might take you several weeks or years. Same thing with finances. If you're not an expert, you should probably hire a financial advisor. And when it comes to coaching, what you're paying for is that person's past and their experience so that they can make your future better, right? Now,
Yeah.
a guy comes to me and says, hey, Christian, I'm not feeling great. Don't have the energy I want. I don't have the libido that I know I could have. I'm not proud of what I see in the mirror. The first thing I'll ask is about their lifestyle. What are you eating? What's your exercise regimen? What's your stress like? Okay. I want to look at their life holistically because it is largely about the food, but also how are you sleeping? Okay. What's going on outside of when you're in the gym, if you're even going to the gym? And then we're going to look at what your blood work is like. If you haven't had blood work done, then I'll have them get blood work done. And if they have, and it's fairly recent within the last couple months, I'll look at that. And again, you can't hide from what's inside. So blood work is a foundational piece. Okay, there's a lot of people who say, I think I feel good. And we've all heard stories of people that, oh, he died out of nowhere. There's always a reason. And oftentimes it's because you haven't done the things you need in order to determine your internal health. So lifestyle we'll talk about, blood work we'll look at, and we'll establish goals, SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, time-bound, right, and realistic. And what I tell men is that we're going to make small, manageable steps to get there. A lot of guys look at where they want to be. They might be very overweight. Maybe they only want to lose 20 pounds, but most of the time, there's a decent mountain to climb up that guys want to achieve. And they'll look at the top of Everest and say, how am I ever going to get there? When in reality, the same way that everyone else has climbed Everest is one step at a time. So we say, okay, what's sustainable for you? Okay. What's the lowest hanging fruit? Okay. Critical point analysis. I'm a big advocate of that. What's the smallest change we can make that yields the largest result? And oftentimes that's found in sleep, eating, exercise. So a guy says, hey, man, I haven't exercised in 10 years. Got it. Okay, let's start you with some walking. Now, of course, if they hire me with as a coach, we're going to do a little bit more than that in the beginning. But if they're just asking me for information, what can you do that doesn't require you to make a lot of changes in your life? Hey, I'm not ready for a gym membership yet. Cool. Can you walk outside? The answer is, of course, yes. Go do that. Start with 15 minutes a day. Okay, then maybe 20. Then maybe it's body weight exercises in your house. The point is to get the ball rolling. When it comes to eating, it's not about being perfect, even though it doesn't exist. And I have 6 meals a day and all this protein. How about at every meal you prioritize protein? I don't care yet about what you're eating. I don't care yet about, okay, well, I had this on the weekend and this during the. Don't make it so complicated. Start with prioritizing protein. At each of your 3 meals each day, or 4, whatever you eat, make protein take up the largest amount of space on your plate, okay? And then when it comes to sleep, how are you sleeping? And how I look at that is, what are you doing before you go to bed? Most importantly, how do you feel when you wake up? So I'll say, if you're getting 5 or 6 hours, that's sleep deprivation. And clinically, it's not just my opinion. So I'd say, hey, let's aim for, if you're getting 6, let's aim for 6.5. And I've even had guys, that come to me who are corporate executives, entrepreneurs, and time is everything, right? So they're like, hey, man, I'm putting out fires. I'm on phone calls. I got kids to take care of. Okay, let's add 15 minutes. And then after a week or 2 weeks or 3, once that's your new habit, then we can add another 15. But the point is, you notice how each of these aspects is building on your foundation, just like a house is built. Okay, some people have the ability to change a lot in a short period of time, but this is also where a lot of people get confused by social media is they see, oh man, everyone's jacked and they have all this, these great things happening. You don't know where they came from and you don't know their life. So focus on you and run your own race, build slowly over time.
Yeah, I mean, we still got a lot to cover, but going back to the sleep, I work with my boys 17 and 15 over and over and tell them, look, you can eat the correct protein amounts, you can eat the right fats, you can eat the right carbs, you can hit the gym, but if you don't sleep, then you're not going to recover. Your hormones are not going to be correctly. I just got through reading a research study in a 16-year-old boy. If he does not get at least 9 hours of sleep for 7 days straight, his testosterone levels are not at the levels of a 16-year-old boy. They're at the level of like a 27-year-old boy. So I don't want to spend the rest of the episode of talking about just the importance of sleep. But if I'm a man in my 30s or 40s and say, man, I just, 4 or 5 hours, I'm good with that. But I still want to look like you, Christian. Give us a little, why is that not possible?
Okay. So everyone's looking for a hack these days, right?
Yep.
How do I get, the fountain of youth in a pill or in 5 minutes? It's 3-minute ads.
Yep.
Sleep is a magic bullet. You heard it here. You can put that on the books. Sleep is a magic bullet, meaning when you sleep, a lot more happens than just resting, okay? Your brain recovers. Your nervous system recovers. Your tissue recovers. A lot of guys with old nagging injuries, shoulders, elbows, backs, knees, a lot of this gets better after a certain amount of sleep. And the reason why you want a certain amount is you want to go through all the phases, right? Not to get too complicated. The other thing is, notice how these days diseases are rampant, from diabetes to Alzheimer's to, well, we'll call it low testosterone. We'll call that an epidemic. And part of that is because sleep actually helps you regulate blood sugar. Because when you sleep, you lower your cortisol. When your cortisol is lower, essentially throughout the day, it is high at certain points, but that's supposed to be that way. When it stays at a healthy level, it allows your body to better absorb glucose and better recover. You also get stronger, helps your libido, and it reduces the chance of you getting Alzheimer's. Without getting too complicated, when you lay on your back, the fluid in your brainstem actually clears these things called beta amyloid plaques out of your head. When those build up over time, that puts you at a higher chance of getting something like Alzheimer's or dementia. When you sleep better, that lowers the chance of that. It's the same thing with blood sugar regulation. People that have diabetes, it's primarily from what you eat, but it's also correlated to getting less sleep. And when those are in combination, not a good recipe. So sleep is the best way to heal, the best way to nurture. Also digestion. A lot of guys, later in life, of course, a lot of people are making bad choices as far as what they eat, but they complain of bloating. Man, I can't get this stomach. It always seems to be distended, or I eat a little bit and I feel full. Digestion is magic for your digestion. Sleep is magic for your digestion. I've got tons of guys who come to me, and part of what we work on is their digestion. And what makes the biggest difference, one is sleep, two is alcohol, but that's another topic we'll get into. So all in all, to say sleep is a magic bullet. And Jeremy, you brought up a great point about if a boy doesn't get 9 hours consecutively, there's a drop in testosterone. There's also a study that shows men who get 5 hours or less, and they're actually changing the research or changing the recommendations up to 6, because they're realizing the value of between 5 to 6 makes a drastic difference. 5 hours or less for between 4 and 7 nights in a row, somewhere in that realm. I'm trying to remember exactly. You can have an acute drop in testosterone of up to 40 to 48%. So when you have someone who sleeps terribly for extended periods of time, no wonder you have trouble getting out of bed. No wonder you need a ton of coffee. No wonder your libido is in the toilet. No wonder you can't build muscle. No wonder you have trouble burning fat. Sleep is the foundation for all these things.
Yep, that's awesome. That's powerful, man. I tell you, it's something that, Christian, I wish I would have learned from you back when I was in my 30s. I was that go-getter that just, oh, I'll sleep when I die. I mean, I had no idea the importance of sleep until I got to my 40s. I started even training harder than what I did in my 30s. And I have been implementing, good quality of sleep for the last 5 years pretty consistently. And man, I wish I would have listened to someone like you a long time ago. But let's talk about protein. I know I'm big on protein. I try to consume the right amount of protein in order for me to not only gain muscle, but also to decrease the body fat and to just feel better throughout the day. I mean, the days that I don't get my protein intake, I do not feel like I need to feel. So what amount of protein would you recommend to a client getting started, and then longevity of this is the right amount of protein that you need to shoot for?
Okay, so in general, it's between 0.8 to 1 grams per pound of lean body mass, right? So you don't have to eat for your fat tissue, and you disperse that throughout the day in whatever number of meals you eat. So a lot of guys say, oh, I find it hard to get a lot of protein. One, protein powder is a miracle, right? Because there's no easier way to consume anything than drinking it. So protein powder makes it simple. And one of the easiest ways is you can look up male body fat percent chart, and look at the pictures on Google, and then look at yourself in the mirror, and you can sort of predict where you are, right? Okay, let's say you're 20% body fat. Well, your total body weight times 0.20, that gives you your lean body weight. Eat that number of grams of protein. And if you eat 4 meals a day, disperse that among 4 meals. So again, you want to break it down so that it's like, okay, I have to eat, let's just say it's 40 grams 4 times a day. Okay, so each meal I'll make sure I get that 40 grams. The carbs always manage to make their way in there. That's not the hard part. Now, when it comes to recovery, remember that your skin, hair, nails, eyes, all of it is made of protein. So it's not just about your muscle tissue. It's about regenerating all those tissues. And the other part is that sarcopenia is a real thing. And that's the loss of muscle as we age due to the decline in hormones. And that's a natural part of life. So the problem is a lot of people think that they need less food as they age. Hey, I'm less active. I'm not as young as I used to be, which is a terrible mindset, but that's another topic. And they just eat less. And a lot of times they'll go on these crash diets. Let me just lower my calories, and they lower everything. They lower protein, they lower fats, they lower carbs. Don't get me started on that because I could go on all day. But at the very least, protein should be the consistent. That's the variable that should never change from now until the end of life, because your body declines in its ability to absorb protein. So for a brief example, let's say when you're 20 years old, you eat 10 grams of protein. Let's say your body absorbs 9. Well, when you're 55, your body may absorb 6 or 7 grams, right? It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you get the idea. So when you're older, you need more because the factory is not as efficient as it used to be. So that 1 gram per pound of body weight really matters later in life. And I have guys who are older even needing more than that in order to now build muscle, not just maintain what they have.
Yeah. Yeah. Explain to the men that's listening the importance of what protein does from like your BMR and why that's important. And because a lot of people still don't understand that. They just think, oh, you just need protein just to build muscle.
Okay, that's a great topic. So, all right, your muscle tissue is the most metabolically active tissue in your body, right? Which means it uses energy. So think of your body. I'm a car guy, so I tell guys
Right.
things by way of cars. Someone who doesn't lift weights, doesn't have much muscle, you're a 4-cylinder, let's just say. Now, someone who lifts weights, exercises on a regular basis, gets sleep and all that good stuff, you're a V12. Now, when you're just idling, meaning at rest, sitting at a desk doing nothing, which engine is burning more energy? The V12, right?
Well,
The problem is that a lot of guys are 4-cylinders and they're wondering why you have to do so much work to lose body fat. Well, that little engine has to run a ton of time just to burn as many calories as that 12-cylinder does just doing everyday tasks. So when you build muscle, you need more protein. That protein helps you maintain and or build the muscle, and that muscle is what determines, besides your genetics, but the muscle is the one that you can change. Obviously, you can't change your genetics. How many calories you burn during activity and at rest. So your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, you, Jeremy, sitting there are burning more calories than a guy who does not lift and does not get enough protein, which then makes fat loss simpler, right? Because you're like, hey, I just got to maybe take the carbs down a little bit and I keep doing what I'm doing now. I don't even have to add more. But the guy who has not built muscle and is not eating enough protein, now he has to up his protein. Now he has to up his exercise. Then he has to eat less. So there's a lot more change that has to happen.
You know, that's powerful, Christian. That's something that I totally believe in. I've noticed it in my own life, you know, in the last 8 years since I've started lifting, you know, really, really consistently and making sure I get the right protein intake. Now, I know you also are a specialist at working with men on testosterone levels. And, you know, you're a big believer like me, getting your blood levels, you know, checked, getting to a hormone specialist, making sure everything is in line. But I also know that there's a lot of other things that we can do to increase our testosterone. What would you say to that?
Okay, so the pillars are still sleep, nutrition, and exercise. Those supersede
Always be.
everything. Yeah. And no surprise is that when you improve those things and get them squared away, a man who has low or moderate testosterone, let's say that could have higher, those things already will start to improve your testosterone, right? So there are guys who talk about, I want to do everything my body can before I even consider something like TRT, which is exactly what you should do. You should
Right.
give your body the opportunity to be the greatest it can be, right? So it's crazy that we live in a world now where if you go hang out with a bunch of friends, they look at you like you're crazy if you're not drinking and staying out late. Oh, what's wrong with you, man? Are you something wrong? No, I actually like myself. Like I want to treat my body well. So when you're looking to improve your hormones, sleep, in my opinion, is the number one. Okay? Sometimes you got to just bring it to how you feel because it's an easy metric to go by. When you don't get a lot of sleep, how do you feel in the morning? Like crap. That directly affects your testosterone production. And just like we said before, Jeremy, you gave that great example for the kids, for the younger men. And then the same thing with my example for guys in the middle age is that you do that long enough, you're going to put a serious dent in your testosterone. Now, it doesn't mean it stays that way. But if you do it for decades, father time is already taken away. So you're reducing your body's ability to perform optimally, which is what we want. And higher testosterone levels are correlated with a longer life. Now, a lot of people don't understand that. Remember that testosterone is not just about muscle. It determines our thirst for life. When men want to go attack things, whether it's career, whether it's do a marathon, do a powerlifting competition, do a Spartan race, that controls our disposition. How
Yeah.
we, how you do anything is how you do everything. So your testosterone also determines the quality of your digestion. It determines the relationships you have and how you end up interacting with other men, how you end up showing up for your wife and your kids. Just think about what a superhero looks like. Why do we all love superheroes when we're kids? Because they're
Yeah.
jacked, they just kick butt, and they are the apex of what we aspire to be. I'm a firm believer that every single man should be his kid's superhero. Okay?
Yes.
And a lot of men don't understand that when you start taking care of yourself and you become the best version of yourself, you will show your kids what to aspire to in the future. And they will look at you with more respect, with more admiration. What kid doesn't want to say, hey, my dad's the coolest dad in the world. He's jacked. He can beat your dad up. He's stronger than your dad, all that stuff. Every kid wants to be able to say that. And remember, even though you think, oh, yeah, my wife loves me the way I am, right? Oh, yeah, my
Yeah.
kids are just getting by and being mediocre, they still love you, but they would respect you more. And
Yeah.
testosterone is directly related with how you're going to achieve success in those facets.
Yeah, something I've noticed, Christian. I don't know if you've ever heard this or not. I read it in a book, but and I'm a true testimony to this. Is testosterone makes effort feel good, and when your testosterone levels are optimized correctly, then man, going to the gym is always takes discipline, right? But for me, pushing myself a little bit harder, it feels good. Do you agree with that?
100%. I couldn't agree more. So, okay, this is something that I've looked at with my clients over the years. So I've had lots of guys come to me, and I'm talking they are down and out and in terrible health, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol. Their energy's terrible. They might have a bunch of zeros in the bank, so that's good. But they look at themselves, they won't take their shirts off at the beach. Their wives, and they see it because, sometimes they'll just be doing something, they'll kind of glance off and they'll notice their wife look at them just kind of with this, all right, well, he's my husband. I guess I let, right? While their guts hanging over their belt. And they don't have this drive to go take on life. And that's exactly what you're talking about is as men, we're naturally competitive. We want to be the best. We want to be first. We want to be the dominant one. And testosterone is the reason why. That's why we're stronger. That's why we're faster, all that stuff. And when you go to the gym or when you're at home, when your testosterone's higher, you're like, okay, I want to go do something. Like I want to go, you set more goals. You're much more likely to achieve them. And it makes you want to compete and want to win. Guys with low
Yeah.
T are the ones who are like, wow, man, I can't seem to get off the couch.
Yeah.
Just like you said, when you go to the gym, you start working, you're like, oh, because you're getting that desire out to just be the man. And
Yeah.
you're right, the effort feels great. Now, I will say effort feels good for both, whether testosterone's not where it needs to be, or you have great testosterone, but it's even better for that guy who's really been on point to the point where it almost becomes your drug. I've actually had clients
Yeah.
who were, drank alcohol. You could really call them low grade alcoholics who alcohol
Right.
all the time. We're talking beer and wine every night, maybe a little bit of marijuana or whatever their vice was. Oftentimes it's that or food to the point where now they're fit. I'm talking they dropped 40, 50, 60, 70 pounds. And, and each day they're like, I got to get my fix of exercise. Where now that's the addiction. And I don't mean addiction in the wrong way. And no
No,
matter how you say it, exercise is a good thing to be addicted to as opposed to the other.
absolutely.
And they're like, man, I just don't feel myself without it.
Well, Christian, we've talked about sleep, we've talked about nutrition, we've talked about testosterone, we've talked about, weight training and the importance of strength training, but the last thing that I want to ask you about is how important is mindset in this whole thing? A lot of times people don't know, how important that mindset is. And I've watched your trainings and your teachings, and could you explain to the audience, what part of the mindset, how crucial is having the right mindset before you build a new you?
Mindset is the most important aspect of becoming the version of yourself that you know you can be, but aren't yet. It's my firm belief, and I live by this: every man needs a mission. A man without a mission is lost. Okay? One of the reasons why, let's talk about relationships briefly. One of the reasons why a woman chooses a man is because, look at him, think of him as a train. The train is headed somewhere, and she's like, hey, I'm going to get on the path with you, and we're going to go. We're going to conquer, right? When that train slows down, or he's willing to take any track, he doesn't have a set direction. Your woman feels that, your kids feel that, and your life shows it, okay?
Right.
The mindset comes after the work. So this is also why it's important for men who don't feel like going to the gym and are having trouble getting started to walk no matter what, because once you get the results, then you'll feel the way. And along that path, exercise teaches you a lot about yourself. It teaches you about fortitude. It teaches you to push when things get tough. And no doubt, I've had lots of clients who their health issues come up. Things happen with the family. Somebody unfortunately in their family gets cancer, or somebody gets sick in some way. And now they have to be the one to provide, protect, and support. And if that man, and this is across the board, the men who do not take care of themselves are always the ones who back down. Oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, you know what? I stopped taking care of myself. I don't feel like I can do this. Right? Versus the men who push are able to be the mountain for the family. Right? The kids are stressed out. They can come to him. The wife is stressed out. She can come to him. When he has problems, he's able to manage them better. Your ability to deal with stress, your ability to be an example for those around you, your family, your community. Mindset is everything. And men grow through struggle. And that is, I think, a pillar of life, is that a lot of men don't realize that. They wish for an easier life. There's a quote that says, don't wish for an easier life, but wish for the strength to endure a hard one. And the strength that you want comes through challenge. A man says, hey, I want more patience. The universe is going to send you things that are going to take patience. Okay. The man says, I want to be stronger. The universe is going to send you struggle for you to build fortitude. So always remember that what you asked for will be sent for you, and it'll show up in hammers, buckets, overalls. It shows up as work. And once you do that work and you become that person, now you have those traits that you can then succeed in life and then show to others and how they can walk the path also.
One of my favorite quotes, Christian, is conquer the mind and you'll conquer the world. It all starts with the mindset. So taking men from average to alpha, I put my stamp of approval on you and what you're doing with men. And it's been an honor and a privilege to have you on the Hard Truth podcast today. If I'm listening to the podcast today and I want to reach out to you, I understand the value of hiring a coach. What is the best way to get a hold of you?
So, you can reach me on Instagram, Christian F, as in Foxtrot, Christian F. Palmer. You can email me at christianfpalmer@gmail.com. Those would be the two easiest ways to get in touch. And, I want to say thank you, Jeremy, to you as well, because, you're definitely a stand-up man. You're a man of integrity. You're a man of value. And there's a lot of guys who look up to you, including myself. And, guys like you, we need more of. One, you're raising two great sons. You're doing great things for the community. And you're a guiding light for a lot of guys who want to become a better version of themselves. So
I appreciate it, Christian. That's why we're building this community of men of like mind. And I cannot wait to continue to watch your journey and see how many people's lives you impact. And I tell everyone that's the only way to true happiness is making an impact in other people's lives. So you are doing that for the average man, taking them from average to alpha. I love this episode. If you're listening to this episode and you have a friend or family member, maybe yourself, that's wanting to go from average to alpha, it's not tomorrow, it's today is the time to start and change from average to alpha. Thank you, Christian Palmer. Share this with a friend or a family member. Thank you for tuning in to the Hard Truth Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go.